What's up guys, I'm Brian Lovett aka B-Love. Today we're going to talk about the EGO 21-inch self-propelled electric mower, the LM2100, specifically with the 21-inch deck. If you followed my reviews of this mower last year, you'll note that I had very good performance of it across a wide range of tasks. I typically mulch my yard. I actually haven't used the bag at all. The one area I felt like it was missing some performance was mulching leaves. That's something I do in the fall every year. I just run the mower across the leaves, try to pick them up, and I felt like the performance wasn't as good as some of my gas-powered mowers in the past. Now, some comments on those videos suggested that I use the high lift blade, so today we've picked up one of the high lift blades for the mower. So we're gonna do a test and we're gonna compare the stock blade to the high lift blade on some leaves and grass and debris in the yard and see which one comes out on top, see how much of a difference this really makes. Now the test is pretty simple. We've set up 2 strips of yard with these extra grass clippings and we're going to compare the performance of the high lift blade to the standard blade. We'll start with the standard blade first. And let's take a look at the results. Let's get the blade swapped and try this again. And before we put the other blade back on, some quick observations, just initially, first impressions. This is the original blade, and as you can see, it has a very small cross-sectional area here. It also has this design that's kind of cut out of it, perhaps to lower drag and wind resistance to increase battery life. On the other hand, you can see the stark difference with this one. The back edge of the blade is curved and has quite a bit bigger surface area than the original blade. They're obviously the same length, but then width-wise, if you stack them together, you can see how much of a difference there really is there. And that blade profile, I think, is going to make quite a difference. So let's get this thing on there and see how it performs in comparison. It's really easy to swap out the blade here. All you need is a 14mm wrench and then something like an Allen key to stick in here just so you can get extra torque through this hole here. The other thing to note is this does say this side facing grass on one side of the blade, so that's really all you have to do to remind yourself the direction that the blade needs to be facing. There's a self-centering washer that can only go on one way on the actual drive shaft that sits on the electric motor. So it's pretty straightforward to get this done. Now, as always, the first thing you want to do anytime you change out a blade is take the battery out. You don't want to take any chances. So let's see how this high lift blade does. And the result. So I think we're going to run a couple more tests. What I noticed is that the blade is a little bit louder, which makes sense because it has a much larger surface area and it's also curved slightly more. So it is louder than the stock blade, but it's not loud enough to really cause a nuisance. It's still much quieter than a gas mower overall. It does sound and seem like it has more suction when it's going over stuff. You can actually hear more of the debris on the lawn being sucked into the blades. It does seem like it does a better job at picking things up and getting it cut into bits, but it also does seem to leave quite a bit of debris in between the tracks. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the rest of the lawn and then we're gonna see how it does. Since I have quite a bit of experience cutting with the standard blade, we'll see how this one does at mowing the lawn. All right, Alright, so after mowing this whole side of the yard with this high lift blade, I have a few thoughts. First of all, I think that if you've used the standard blade and you've been bagging, you've probably had pretty subpar performance. I think this high lift blade, especially if you're bagging your grass, makes a pretty big difference. So I would definitely suggest it if you're planning on bagging your grass. Now, for someone like me that always mulches, I do notice that it has quite a bit more pickup, but still the one thing that I'll note is you can still see that it leaves quite a bit of grass in the lawn. So there's a few areas where I'm gonna have to go over possibly 2 times in order to pick up those sections of grass. The one area where it does seem to do a much better job is this grass is actually damp. This is my first cut of the year. It's Colorado. It snowed 2 days ago, believe it or not, with how beautiful it is out. But the one thing that I noticed is that before, if you've ever cut a lawn with the EGO mower with the default factory blade, you'll notice that in between lines or even within a lane that you cut, you'll see blades of grass still sticking up that it just didn't have enough suction to really get and cut cleanly. I don't see that problem with this blade. Everything looks nice and evenly cut, even though the grass is somewhat damp. So that alone, I think, makes this blade worth picking up. Now, having said that, I honestly think this is the way the mower should have come from the factory. EGO should have included the high lift blade by default. So I think that's something that they can work on and they can do a better job of in the future. The con to all this is I still don't think it's the perfect mulching solution. If you have any suggestions for a better mulching setup with this mower, then leave me some comments and suggestions down below and I'll do my best to test them out and see if we can get to a better place with mulching. Thanks guys, until next time.